All right, get ready to dive into some pretty provocative stuff.
Okay.
We're looking at biblical figures and the Quran today.
Right.
And specifically, we've got these excerpts from The Great Bounty.
Okay.
And one of the things that really jumps out is this claim that a figure named Israel might predate Adam.
Wow.
Like this is...
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a pretty big claim,
A
right?
lot.
So we're gonna unpack that a bit.
Yeah, let's see what they have to say.
See what they have to say.
Yeah.
And what kind of evidence they're bringing to the table.
Exactly.
So one of the things that they point to
Yeah.
is how the name Israel itself is constructed.
Okay, yeah. The name itself is fascinating.
So they point out that El is a term for God.
Right.
And Isra could relate to a journey to receive a divine message.
So like a pilgrimage almost.
Yeah, like a spiritual journey.
A quest for knowledge.
Exactly. So essentially,
Yeah.
Israel becomes the first to seek knowledge from God.
Okay, so they're positioning Israel as like the original seeker.
Yeah.
First prophet in a way.
The first prophet, which is...
Which is interesting because
Yeah.
that kind of flips the script on the traditional narrative, right?
Right. Because we usually think of Adam as being the first human.
Exactly. That's the story we're all familiar with.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how does the source reconcile this idea of Israel before Adam?
Well, they suggest
Yeah.
that the Quran itself hints at this possibility.
Okay.
They point out, for example,
Yeah.
that the Quran doesn't explicitly call Jacob Israel the way the Bible does.
That's interesting. I never...
Right. It's a subtle difference.
Yeah.
But the source argues it's a clue that Israel might be a separate figure altogether,
Okay.
one who existed before Adam.
So are we talking about like two separate creations here?
That's how the source seems to interpret it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first, Israel.
They're suggesting that God created Israel first, but that this figure ultimately went astray.
Okay.
So God then created Adam as a successor, a new beginning.
So a do-over.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
A fresh start.
So if Israel existed before Adam,
Right.
what happened to him
Well,
and his descendants?
that's where the idea of these two distinct groups comes in.
Okay.
The source refers to them as the children of Israel
Okay.
and the children of Adam, and suggests that these two groups represent a fundamental duality.
Duality.
Yeah.
So like good versus evil or something more complex.
It's definitely presented as a conflict,
Okay.
but it's more nuanced than just a simple good versus evil.
Okay.
They portray the children of Israel as those who went astray, becoming associated with negativity,
Okay.
and even being described as cursed.
Cursed. Wow.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the children of Adam are depicted as the righteous ones.
Right. They're the ones carrying the true message, remaining faithful to God.
So this isn't just about a chronological order
Yeah.
of creation.
It's not just about who came first.
Yeah.
It's also about this spiritual or moral distinction.
Between these two groups.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does the source offer any specific examples
They do.
of this duality playing out in the texts?
Yeah, they point to verses in both the Quran and the Gospel
Okay.
where Jesus condemns the Israelites for their wrongdoings,
Okay.
further reinforcing this idea of them being a cursed group.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer
Right.
to those passages.
It makes you rethink those familiar stories.
Yeah, it definitely makes you reread those texts with a fresh perspective.
Exactly.
And this duality, it's not just about individual figures.
No, it's bigger than that.
Like Jesus or Jacob.
Right.
The source connects it to specific locations as well.
Yes, locations are key here.
Yeah, they mention Mecca and Jerusalem.
Yeah, but not in the way we typically think of them.
Right.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit about
Yeah.
what it says about these locations?
So the source suggests that the true Mecca, the original holy site, is not the city we know today, but actually Petra.
Petra?
Yeah, a site in Jordan.
Okay.
With ancient connections to the Israelites.
That's interesting.
And they even hint at the black cube
Oh, wow.
found in Jewish prayer items
Yeah.
as a possible link back to Petra's significance.
That's fascinating.
It's like they're proposing a geographical dimension to this duality as well.
So if Petra represents the children of Israel,
Right.
where do the children of Adam fit in?
According to the source, Jerusalem,
Okay.
or Baka, as it's sometimes referred to,
Okay.
is the true spiritual center for the children of Adam.
For the children of Adam.
Yeah, it's presented as the place
Okay.
where prophets,
Okay.
specifically Canaanite Arab prophets.
Wait, Canaanite Arab prophets?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on who they are
Sure.
and how they fit into all of this?
So the source is very specific about this point.
Okay.
They emphasize that none of the prophets in Jerusalem were Israelites. They describe them as Canaanite Arabs,
Okay.
essentially the predecessors to the Abrahamic prophets,
Okay.
sharing a similar lineage to Adam,
Okay.
but with a distinct message and purpose.
So we're seeing a clear division here.
Yes, very much so.
Petra and the children of Israel
Right.
versus Jerusalem and the children of Adam.
Exactly.
It sounds like two parallel worlds
Almost, yeah.
existing side by side.
Two different paths.
But how did these two groups interact,
That's a great question.
if at all?
And one the source only hints at.
Okay.
They imply there was conflict and tension between these groups,
Okay.
but they don't go into great detail about specific interactions.
Okay.
However, they do suggest
Yeah.
that this underlying tension
Yeah.
is woven throughout the Quran,
Hmm.
subtly shaping the narratives and teachings we
Okay.
might take for granted.
So what we're really talking about here
Yeah.
is a reinterpretation
A radical reinterpretation
of biblical and
Right.
Quranic history.
that challenges traditional understandings
Everything.
of key figures,
Right.
events, even locations.
Yeah.
It's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
The whole new way of looking at things.
This is already making me rethink
Right.
some of the assumptions I had about these texts.
It's like we're peeling back layers of history.
It's like we're uncovering a
Yeah.
whole new narrative.
And who knows what else we'll find as we
Yes.
dig deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is like putting together a puzzle with all these pieces from different texts.
And one of the most intriguing pieces
Mm.
is this idea of Israel as a prototype for all prophets.
Right.
We talked about how he's the first one to undertake that night journey,
Yes.
to receive a divine message,
Setting the stage.
setting the stage for everyone who comes after.
Exactly.
And that concept of the night journey is central to both Islamic
Absolutely.
and Judeo-Christian traditions.
It's a universal theme.
So in Islam,
You have the Isra and Miraj.
right where Muhammad travels to Jerusalem
Yes, and ascends to heaven.
and ascends to heaven.
In Christianity,
Yeah,
you have Moses ascending Mount Sinai
right.
to receive the Ten Commandments.
To receive the law from God.
And all of these journeys are about connecting with the divine,
Yes.
receiving that knowledge
It's about seeking that direct connection.
and guidance.
Exactly.
So the source is saying that Israel is the original archetype
The OG prophet,
for this type of prophetic experience,
the one who sets the pattern.
the one who sets the pattern for all the prophets who come after.
Right. And by placing him before Adam,
Yeah.
it elevates him to this almost mythical status.
Okay.
He's not just a man.
Yeah.
He's a symbol of humanity's first attempt to connect with God, an attempt that ultimately went astray.
Right. And that brings us back to
Back to the duality.
this idea of duality.
The children of Israel versus the children of Adam.
And you mentioned earlier that the source claims that the Quran subtly references this conflict
Yes.
throughout the text.
All throughout.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Sure. One that stands out is
Right.
the story of the golden calf.
Yeah.
Remember when Moses is up on Mount Sinai,
Yes. Receiving the Ten Commandments.
receiving the law from God?
Yes.
The Israelites down below, they get
Yeah.
impatient.
Yep.
They start doubting,
Right.
and they create an idol,
An idol to worship.
the golden calf to worship.
Yeah.
And this act of idolatry,
Mm-hmm.
the source argues,
Yeah.
exemplifies the tendency of the children of Israel to stray from the path.
To stray from the true path.
Yeah,
Oh,
to
yes.
turn away from God.
And in contrast, children of Adam,
Right, they remain faithful,
they stay on the path.
following the guidance of prophets.
Like those Canaanite Arab prophets in Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Okay.
The source suggests
Yeah.
that the Quran, when read through this lens,
Okay.
reveals this constant tension.
Between these two groups.
Yes, this battle between righteousness
Okay.
and those who choose to follow their own desires.
It really casts a different light
Yeah,
on stories we might think.
it makes you question everything you thought you knew.
We know so well,
Exactly.
but does the source explain why the children of Israel are portrayed so negatively?
That's a good question.
Is it just about bad choices?
Well,
Or is there a deeper reason?
they do mention
Yeah.
that even before Adam was created,
Okay.
the angels noticed the wrongdoings of the children of Israel.
The angels notice.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's like this tendency towards disobedience
Mm.
was there from the very beginning.
So it was almost like they were destined
That's how the source seems to see it.
To stray from the path.
Yeah, like it was built into their nature.
Even before they were given
Exactly.
a specific set of laws to follow.
Like it was inevitable.
That raises an interesting question about free will then.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
If their fate was already predetermined,
Right.
did they really have a choice in their actions?
That's a tough question.
Does the source address this at all?
You know, they don't really go into the philosophical implications of free will.
Okay.
They focus more on this historical narrative,
Okay.
this alternative interpretation.
But even without directly addressing it,
Right.
it's a question that this interpretation inevitably brings up.
It does.
If the children of Israel were cursed from the start,
Yeah.
does that mean they were never truly capable of choosing a different path?
It definitely complicates things, doesn't it?
It does.
It makes you wonder about their motivations.
Were they acting out of free will?
Yeah.
Or were they fulfilling some predetermined destiny?
It's a mind-bending concept.
This whole idea of a pre-Adamic history with its distinct groups
You're right.
and hidden conflict.
It really makes you question everything.
It's like we're unearthing a hidden world
Yeah, like there's this whole secret history
beneath the surface of the text.
waiting to be discovered.
And it's not just about uncovering the past.
No, it's about the present, too.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
The source claims that the true Mecca is actually Petra.
Right.
What if that were widely accepted?
Yeah.
How would that change things? How would that affect the relationship between different faith communities?
That's a really important question.
Right.
It highlights how these seemingly abstract interpretations can have real-world consequences.
Absolutely. They can shape how we see the world.
This deep dive has been
A wild ride.
a roller coaster of revelations.
So many twists and turns.
Challenging concepts.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
We've gone from questioning the identity of Israel to exploring this duality
Of the two groups.
of two distinct groups.
The children of Israel and the children of Adam.
And now we're grappling with the implications
For interfaith relations.
for how we understand different faiths and their relationship to each other.
Exactly.
And there's still so much to unpack.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started.
We haven't even touched on the source's claim
Right.
that the story of Jacob becoming Israel
Is a fabrication.
is a fabrication.
A complete invention.
And that's a claim that's sure to spark even more debate.
Oh, absolutely. People are going to have a lot to say about that.
So we'll be back in a moment
Okay.
to delve into that
Sounds good.
and explore what this source is really trying to tell us
Yeah, what's the real message here?
about the nature of these biblical and Quranic narratives.
I'm ready to dive back in.
Okay, so we're back. And before the break, we were really getting into some of the more controversial claims of this source.
Yeah, this idea that the story of Jacob becoming Israel is a fabrication.
Like, that's a big one, right?
It is. It really
It
challenging.
challenges a lot of traditional understandings.
Exactly. It gets to the core of who Israel really is.
Right, and what that name represents.
And remember, the source is arguing that the name itself
Yeah,
points to someone who existed before Adam.
right, this figure who
Yeah.
journeyed to God for knowledge.
Exactly. They're trying to separate the concept of Israel from the specific person of Jacob.
So if that story is a fabrication,
Right.
what's the purpose?
What are they trying to hide?
Yeah, what are they trying to accomplish by recasting it?
The source sees it as part of a larger attempt
Okay.
to obscure the true history.
Of the children of Israel.
Exactly.
Okay.
They argue that the Quran, while containing hints of this true history, also includes later additions and interpretations
Wow.
that distort the original message.
So they're saying it's been tampered with.
In a way, yeah.
And the story of Jacob
Mhm.
is one of those distortions.
One of those later additions.
A way to hide the fact that the children of Israel were cursed from the beginning.
Exactly.
It's so interesting how this source makes you look at these texts in a whole new light.
Right.
It's like there are these hidden layers of meaning
Like peeling back layers of an onion.
that we have to uncover.
Yeah, a real detective story.
It's like we have to be detectives.
To find the truth.
To find the real truth.
That's been buried over time.
We've encountered a lot of thought-provoking ideas
Yeah,
in this deep dive.
we have.
And I think it's safe to say that this source
Mm-hmm.
is really pushing the boundaries of traditional understanding.
They're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
From Israel predating Adam
Right.
to this concept of two separate groups.
With their own destinies.
Their own separate destinies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to process.
But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this is just one perspective.
It's one interpretation.
One interpretation among many.
Exactly.
It's not about accepting everything as fact.
No.
It's about engaging with these ideas.
And thinking critically.
Thinking critically.
Asking questions.
And figuring out what we can learn from them.
Right.
One thing I've been thinking about is how this interpretation might affect interfaith dialogue.
That's a good question.
With its emphasis on the pre-Adamic history.
Yeah.
And the duality of the two groups.
The children of Israel and the children of Adam.
Could it create more understanding by revealing a shared history?
Or would it just drive people further apart?
Or would it further divide communities by emphasizing their differences?
Yeah, that's something to consider.
It's a really important question.
It is, because these aren't just abstract theological debates.
Right.
They have real-world implications.
They can affect how we interact with each other.
Absolutely.
How we view our own history and beliefs.
How we see ourselves and the world around us.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive.
A lot of ground.
And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's always more to explore.
We talked about Israel predating Adam.
Right.
This concept of the children of Israel and the children of Adam.
Two distinct groups with two distinct paths.
And all the implications for how we understand these ancient texts.
It's been a wild ride.
It has been a truly mind-blowing...
Mind-expanding.
I hope our listeners are leaving with a sense of curiosity. I hope so, too.
And a desire to learn more.
To keep digging.
To keep asking questions.
And to maybe even see these stories in a whole new way.
Exactly.
So, as always, we encourage you to continue the conversation.
Right.
Read, research, discuss.
Keep those minds open.
Keep those minds open.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next time.
Okay.
For another deep dive into the most fascinating and thought-provoking ideas out there.
Can't wait.
Until then, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.